Hi, I'm Irene, and this is Milo, my 13-and-a-half-year-old Brussels Griffon. If you are new to my channel, I have been traveling around for the last 5.5 years in my Dodge Ram Explorer 230 XL Wide Class B van. Today I want to take the time to answer a question that was asked on one of my past videos when I discuss my financial peace journey and goals. That question was, how much does somebody need out here traveling around in an RV or any type of vehicle? They weren't specific about what kind of vehicle, so we're going to discuss that. So just being out here, how much of an emergency fund is someone going to need? So let's get started on that subject. This is going to be a pretty cool topic. All right, are you ready? Okay, stick with me and let's get started. First of all, I want to mention Milo. He was kind of panting a little bit because I left him. I was trying to get the best lighting. I was going to do this outside. I was kind of moving around and trying to, I don't know, I just couldn't get the right lighting. So anyhow, I came inside, but because of that little bit of time, I left him. He does not like being away from me. So that's what his little panting was about. All right, so we are going to get started on a very important topic of that emergency fund. Now, when I answered the comment, a lot of things came to my mind, but if I do forget something in this video and you think of something, definitely put it down in the comment and let's put all of our heads together. If you can think of anything to add to what I'm going to say, definitely do that, okay? So one of the things that came to my mind was it is very different being out here traveling full-time in any kind of recreational vehicle versus a stick and brick home. So you're going to have different things that could come up. Now, in a RV type vehicle, whether it's a trailer, a van, or any type of a Class C or Class A motorhome, what's happening is you're always moving, okay? So it's kind of like going through a earthquake all the time. So everything is shaking and moving. So you are going to have a lot of expenses that are going to come up in the housing part of it, as well as if you are in something that has an engine on top of it, you're going to have engine repairs as well. So there's so many factors to be involved here. Versus whether you have a vehicle and a tow. Sometimes those vehicles can last longer. They don't have as much repairs as maybe a Class C or a Class A. And also repairs on a Class C or Class A can be quite expensive. Also, if you have a tow rig and your rig is diesel engine, sometimes the diesel repairs can be a lot more than a gas rig. So those are things to consider, even though they say diesel, and I could be wrong, but if I'm wrong, definitely correct me. But what I've been told is sometimes diesels don't require as much repair as a gas engine, but when they do, they can be a little bit more expensive. So those are a lot of things to consider, okay? Also, the year of your rig, whether it's a tow rig or a vehicle, a recreation vehicle that has an engine with it, connected with it, inside of it, like I have a van, but I have an engine, with my van, or if you have a Class C or Class A, your engine is a part of your recreation vehicle. So when you have that, a lot of things it's going to consider too is age of your vehicle. Now, when I went into this lifestyle full time, I had an emergency fund in place and still do. But one thing to consider is that my van had 78,000 miles on my rig already. So it was right at the time frame when everything was going to go wrong. It is a Dodge. And I know some people think Fords are better than Dodge, and so we're not going to split hairs on what makes her better. I really just think it depends on the rig and the design of the rig. Now mine is on dualies, and I really think that the rear end of this vehicle, the way that it was manufactured, it definitely had a little bit of, I call a weak kind of, maybe faulty kind of construction by the way that they extended the rear end and the cap on this, because it basically had a shackle mount and everything, and the way it was welded, I believe it wasn't really done correctly. So I had shackle mount failure to this van that had to be re-welded, okay, and fixed. And so I ended up seeing two guys today regarding the shackle. And but anyway, so I ended up seeing a 4x4 guy, and I got a tip to see someone who, does that kind of work, because they're always putting lift kits and they're changing the suspension and everything like that on those kind of rigs. And so that was a dead end. The guy looked underneath, and I mean, not totally, I mean, he said he probably could do it, but it would cost me a lot of money if he tried to get in there and finagle something in there. He said bad design. It's like when they made that extension, they should have extended the the body framing along out with the rear end, and they didn't. And so basically what the shackle is connected to is like sheet metal, thick sheet metal, but still sheet metal. And so not one of the best things to, obviously, to connect a shackle to. So he referred me to someone else. So, but I didn't see the second guy, I just talked to him, or the connection. But the actual second person I saw, he came out and looked at the vehicle. And I mean, everybody is saying, wow, they just, it was not a good design on the way they did the rear end extension. The second guy was saying, this place that I'm going to tomorrow, that I have the appointment with in the morning, is really my best hope. It's a truck and repair place, and it's where Camping World referred me to go over there. So there's still hope in tomorrow's appointment. Well, it is the next day. So anyways, because I knew I was running out of options and types of places to fix this. And so everybody kept saying truck or body repair kind of places. So I met Bob. So he's 70 years old, and he's been doing this for over 30 years, working on repairs and trucks and, this kind of stuff, and RVs, and I saw a lot of RVs there. I looked at it, and he totally agreed with the other two guys that what a Mickey Mouse assembly that they did in there of that whole leaf spring shackle, shock assembly. Said he can do it, okay? The bad news is that it's going to be very expensive. He's $95 an hour, and it's going to take a good day's work, you know, but I do have the money, so that's the good news. We're going from, you know, good news, bad news, good news. It just, you know, also breaks my heart, because what if someone was in this situation or this van or type of van, and with poor design, they get hit with something like this? I mean, it's pretty sad, you know. It's just one of those things that we don't think about, or even us girls out there getting a rig. My heart goes out to anybody who would be in this situation with no money to fix it. I mean, they would be sitting, I mean, because they're telling me don't drive this thing too much longer in this condition. I'm going to try to film this the best I can. But where they originally attached the shackle, there wasn't any place for them to properly secure it to the heavy-duty part of the body of the frame. So they went in through the underneath, but it's almost like sheets of metal that aren't really very thick. That has been one of my problems. And so, there it is there, sorry. So it's just these sheets of metal that they bolted this to, rather than actually to something of substantial of the, like a frame piece like this is what it should really be, to a solid piece of metal, not to bolted to a bunch of sheets like this. So this is why it gave away. So this is the broken one that's flipped up, when this should be secured to this piece here. So that has been my issue. Okay, so this is the good side, okay, where the shackle is attached to the leaf spring, which the other side is still attached to the leaf spring. Okay, that's the leaf spring right there. But here is the attachment part problem, is right in here, where this is attached up in here. So it's just a matter of time that this is going to give away, because there's nothing substantial up in here. It should be, like I said, to some solid piece of metal. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to do this. It should be to some kind of piece of metal like this, that's, you know, really substantial. But all this part in here that they've attached this to is not very strong. And actually, see, there's part of the metal, you can see that this part is coming through. It's just actually sheets of metal. And so, and then that just gave away on the other side, which caused this to come down and flip. But this part here is not very thick. It's sheets of metal. It just blows me away of the whole Mickey Mouse design, you know, that they came from this piece and then just came in with a bunch of, like, a sheets of metal and attached this to. And obviously, with all the pressure that's coming from the wheel, that just gave away. And that's what you're seeing on the other side. That might not have been a situation in someone else's rig, but definitely if you have an older rig, you can have transmission repairs. I've seen RVs have transmission repairs at an early age compared to mine. Mine is already 116,000 and my transmission is still good. But I've had other things go wrong with it. So basically, in the beginning of my van, I already put in like $10,000 of repairs. I want to say within my first 2 years to year and a half, that I did not expect, because of the shackle mount repair work that I had to have done, a new cat, and then I also had to have ball joint and tie rods and everything that had went out in the front of my van. My ball joint just busted on my front end where my tire is. So I'll be showing you guys my adventure now. I was going to get tires at Discount Tires, and they were going to drive it into the bay, and then all of a sudden the tire just, they heard a snap, and then it just busted and turned in. So waiting on a tow truck, and then gonna get towed over to a place to repair it. So anyways, I was getting quotes on it, but I guess apparently my van wasn't gonna wait for me to finish getting some quotes. But anyway, so I'll show you what's going on. Oh my gosh, what an adventure. Gee. What an adventure. So I had all of that work to be done, and then later on my van broke down. All right, there's my flashers. Oh, I'm stuck a little small space where I could just get my van over on the emergency lane. Not very wide, but enough that I could get myself there. So yay, narrowed a mechanic. Yeah, so I'm waiting for the tow truck. He'll be here within the next 10 minutes, and then he'll tow me. He's familiar with where I'm going to take the van. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe fuel injection. Or it was just a weird kind of vibration sound, and then all of a sudden I started to just like feel this loss of power just go down slowly, and I was able to get over and get off to the side, and now nothing. It won't turn over. It won't do nothing. Yeah, that's what it's doing. I can't accelerate. It's almost like as if there's no gas. Fuel filter, I don't know, maybe something fuel related. I don't know. Fuel filter, fuel pump, just some things like that. And then the other thing happened was a coolant hose. I was driving and my tranny coolant hose came off, but that was an easy repair. But I went ahead and had my tranny serviced and my differential serviced. I broke down my transmission, so stay tuned. More coming in just a second. Oh my gosh, my world. Will I ever get a break anytime soon? Oh my gosh. Hear me, but the police are with me, so they're back there. Oh my gosh. Over to the outside. Get me out of this turn lane. Right here? How much farther?
Alright, turn it off.
Is this good, or you want me further?
I'll just leave you here. You have a joke.
Do you think it'll be safer a little further down there if we can? Because people coming around this, are we good?
We'll set some flares out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Alright.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get this video out for everybody to see what's going on in my world again. I did find a transmission place. The guy is super sweet, so very nice. He said I can stay there, wait for my rig. Transmission line goes to the tranny had busted off. It was leaking tranny fluid everywhere. It got on my brake, and he said he's pretty sure my brake pads are saturated and everything like that. So I did lose power pretty quickly, not engaging into any gear at all and so quickly. And then now recently I have had to have a water pump repair, And then you have your normal brake repairs. You have that going on. And your all overall maintenance stuff done on top of any of these other failures that are going to happen with your rig. So I have put in a lot of money, well over $10,000 in my first 2 years. I probably want to say maybe total time now in about 5.5 years, I've easily probably put in $15,000 worth of repair work, not even including probably the maintenance on top of it. I do know that I'm still looking at a tranny repair, so I have another $5,000 set aside for that tranny work when that happens to go out on me. How much do you need for an emergency fund? I personally think that $20,000 is a pretty good an emergency fund, but a lot of things would also consider that I thought of is if you had a lesser emergency fund, like maybe the $10,000. Hopefully you won't be looking at $10,000 in your first couple of years. How fast can you replace a repair? So if you put in a couple of thousand in the first year or so, or some big major repair, how quickly can you put back your emergency fund? So that is going to definitely be a consideration on how much do you feel comfortable coming out here and starting this lifestyle. That is definitely going to be a huge factor. So if you're not able to put in a lot and you're living closer to check, then I would definitely have a huge emergency fund when you come out here. If you make a lot of money and you're working out on the road and you're able to save a lot of money too while you're out here, then maybe you could get by with $5,000 to $10,000 of an emergency fund to start off with. But I had a lot more than that because I was lucky. I had a sale of a house, and then also I have a 401k put away, so I'm okay there. And then I'm also been working on, trying to get debt free in a couple of years. But again, this video is just to talk about emergency fund. How much is necessary for an emergency fund? Now, if you are a working person, another consideration is what happens if you get ill, you can't work. You are in an accident that's going to take you away from being able to work. So not only are you going to need repairs for your rig, you may need to have at least 3 to 6 months of working emergency fund saved up on top of maybe repairs as well for your comfort zone. So that's something to consider as well. I didn't have to worry about that because I had a sale of a house and I wasn't working, so I was okay with the money I had from my house. And then now I'm on survivor's benefits, so I'm on basically Social Security, and I'll be on Social Security for the rest of my life now. Having an income and saving for that isn't going to be a consideration because I have a steady income coming in. So those are all things that are going to definitely play a role. And as I mentioned, I do follow Dave Ramsey's steps of your emergency fund. His emergency fund baby steps are based off of getting out of debt. So he puts a very low $1,000 baby step because he's trying to get people onto step 2, which is get going on a snowball technique of getting debt free. So his goal is to help people get to that debt and snowball, get out of debt quickly so you can get to step 3, which is to now save up for your larger emergency fund, which will take care of your 3 to 6 months of savings and stuff like that. So with that in mind, it really depends on, are you debt free? Do you still carry a debt? Are you trying to get debt free? So those are a lot of things that are in a consideration of your emergency fund out here on the road. What is your goal? What are you trying to achieve when you are out here? So for me, it was to still get out of debt, but again, I had to sell from my house, so that put me in a whole different, more comfortable ball game out here than some other people. So those are things to definitely think about. But if you are wanting to come out here and get debt-free, use this lifestyle to get debt-free, you still have to consider repair work, and also your housing versus your engine, because things can also go wrong with the vehicle itself. There's whether you can do those repairs or not, or do you have to take your rig in whenever something happens to the housing part of whatever you are traveling in. So if a water pump goes inside of your housing area, anything, you got a plumbing leak, or anything goes wrong electrical, or if you have a refrigerator inside and something goes wrong with that. Sometimes people have class B, C's, A's. You might have a lot more things that could go wrong than if you have a conversion van, something that you have brought in, and you don't have all the plumbing and everything that's going on. Yours is just a more simple conversion. You might have a lot less repairs on that type of vehicle versus a vehicle that's coming out of a manufacturer, like a completely contained type of recreation vehicle. You're definitely going to be having a little bit more probably repair work. So those are things to consider as well. And another thing to consider is going to be, if you do have any kind of a major work on your vehicle, whether in the housing part of it or in your engine, you may not get to stay with your rig. A lot of places are changing that now, where you might have to go into a hotel. So no matter what, I would add into hotel costs. In case that should happen, you will have that covered, because I am finding it harder out here on the road to be able to stay with your rig during repairs than in the beginning. During all of my other repair work, it was much easier. So that is something to consider. So I hope I touched on everything that I could think about on an emergency fund. But one other thing is to consider is, when you are out here, you're not having to pay rent. So that is a plus, unless you are actually staying at a lot of campgrounds. But if you boondock a lot and you're moving and boondocking, so one thing to consider is you are going to be having a little bit more gasoline prices, because you're moving more frequently. So what kind of camping and traveling are you going to be doing out here? That is so critical to know that, because some people get out and they boondock and they don't like it. They just don't feel comfortable about that, and you will need solar, and you'll need other things to help you to be able to stay off grid, So are you able to do that? And then those are going to have additional repairs as well, and to keep up with your batteries and your solar and everything that comes along with being off grid. Now, but there's also additional money when you're at campgrounds and RV parks and stuff like that, so that can be spendy as well. So those are things to consider And if you had to be in one of those or longer term because of a breakdown, maybe putting some of that money aside in case you have to go to a place like that while you're waiting to get your rig repaired, if your rig is still drivable, but you're waiting to get into a mechanic and you're not boondocking, that you'll have some of those expenses ahead of time as well. So I hope I thought of everything. I mean, I tried to, of emergency fund, but I would definitely have anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 as a recap of an emergency fund, or it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 if you're able to replace your emergency fund quickly. You make enough money, you can put it back in very, very quickly, then maybe that would be okay. But if you don't have enough money to, get your emergency fund back built up again after, emergency, because most emergencies can be $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. And if you have a lot back to back in 1 or 2 years, that could, remember, take out a lot of your emergency fund very, very quickly. So I personally like to be more prepared. I like to have that nest egg, of knowing that I'm going to be okay if I'm hit with a couple emergencies back to back within a couple year period. Is I like to also have enough money saved up too, that if something should happen to my rig and my insurance company didn't actually give me to the full value of my rig, that I also have enough that I think whatever they may give me and also replace and get me into another rig. I always want that available as well. I'm always thinking ahead if that should happen. And again, if I miss something or if you have a question, definitely put it down below and we'll learn and kind of go through this together. But I really think the bottom line is going to be your comfort level. What are you the most comfortable with out here? Because some people I know are out here with just a couple $1,000s, maybe $5,000, and they're fine with it. But do you have a way of helping you out there if something was to happen? Family members. I don't have anybody to help me. I'm really solo on my own when it comes to a financial and an emergency. Yeah, there's people that are going to be there maybe to help you. They'll help, rescue you or maybe take you in a little bit, but maybe they can't help you financially. So those are things to know. What kind of support system do you have out there in your life with family, friends, and stuff like that, okay? But for me, because I have disabilities, I wanted to make sure that if anything happened to me, I could be able to recover and get back into a rig as quickly as possible, so that my life isn't going to be in limbo, for too long while I'm trying to get through like a disaster if I should actually lose my rig. So I always want to have that covered. All right, so I hope that helped. And once again, I look forward to looking at your comments. And I hope this helped you out there, gave you some things to think about so you can go deep inside yourself, your comfort level, and then figure out what would work for you and your personal situation. We don't have a crystal ball. I mean, never would I dreamed that I would have been hit like I did in this rig in the beginning of the financial, expenses and emergencies that I got hit with. I never dreamed that that would happen. So always plan for the worst. and also call mechanics, get a heads up on some of your biggest major repairs that could go wrong on your particular rig, and then have those kind of repairs money put aside. It's just kind of know ahead of time. All right? All right, so thanks for coming along, and thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope you learned something, and I look forward to looking at your comments and learning things as well with you all, and I look forward to seeing you in that next video.